In today's world, there's an invisible weight many of us carry, an unspoken pressure to justify our choices, our feelings, and even our existence. We find ourselves caught in this endless cycle of explanation, as if our decisions are incomplete without validation from others. How often have you caught yourself softening your no, trimming your words, or reshaping your truth just to make others feel comfortable? It might seem harmless, even polite, but what if I told you that this constant need for approval is robbing you of your peace and authenticity? Think about the last time you had to defend a decision you made, or when you felt compelled to explain why you didn't do something. Did it feel empowering, or did it drain your energy, leaving you questioning your own right to stand firm? We've all been there. But what if the key to truly finding inner peace is not in explaining yourself more, but in explaining yourself less? For centuries, the Stoics have been teaching us a profound truth about the nature of peace and self-acceptance. Think about it. When we depend on others to understand us, we tie our inner peace to something beyond our control. Our peace becomes fragile, easily shaken by misunderstandings, judgments, or criticism. And yet, in the constant striving to be understood, we lose touch with the one thing we can control, our own inner state. The Stoic philosophers, like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, understood this well. They knew that true peace comes from within. It's about cultivating a sense of self-validation that isn't reliant on the approval of others. They argued that when you seek external validation, whether from friends, colleagues, or strangers, you put your peace in the hands of others, and that can never lead to stability. How many times have you felt unsettled after a conversation, questioning whether your words were received the right way or whether you were understood in the way you wanted to be? The Stoics recognized that this very quest for understanding from others was one of the key sources of inner turmoil. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control how others perceive us, nor should we try to. What we can control is how we perceive ourselves and the decisions we make. When you stop seeking approval and start trusting your own judgment, you create a foundation that's unshakable by external forces. Imagine a life where your peace doesn't depend on others accepting or approving of your choices. This shift from external approval to internal authority is one of the most powerful lessons Stoicism has to offer, and it's the key to breaking free from the exhausting cycle of constant explanation. The moment you let go of the need to justify your existence to others, you reclaim the power to live authentically. Stoicism isn't about isolating yourself or rejecting others. It's about finding a sense of peace that doesn't rely on others' opinions. The true strength lies in standing firm in your own values and decisions, without the need to explain or seek approval. This is the core of Stoic philosophy, living in alignment with your own reasoning, regardless of how others interpret it. Have you ever noticed how explaining yourself often becomes automatic? It's almost as if the moment you make a decision, your mind starts preparing the justification, rehearsing the words, crafting the story to make sure it will be understood, accepted. It happens without us even realizing it. We don't just say no to something, we offer an explanation, a reason, a rationale. We don't just choose what feels right for us, we begin to think about how it will be received. We start adjusting our truth to fit what we imagine others will find acceptable. And over time, this reflex becomes so ingrained that it feels natural. But here's the thing, it's not necessary. The truth is, we've internalized the need to explain ourselves. We've come to believe that our decisions and feelings require permission or validation from others to be legitimate. What's even more unsettling is that we often do this without any conscious thought. It's not that we need to justify our choices, it's that we feel compelled to. This internal pressure can sometimes be so strong that it overshadows our own sense of what's right, pushing us to twist our words, soften our stance, or even shrink our truth so that it fits within the narrow expectations of others. We become more concerned with how others will perceive our actions than with whether our actions are aligned with our own values. Think about the last time you made a decision, whether it was in your personal life, at work, or in a social setting. Did you find yourself explaining it in detail, even when it wasn't necessary? Perhaps you felt the need to make sure the other person understood why you made that choice, why you felt that way, or why you said no. It might have started out as a simple choice, but soon enough it became a negotiation, a performance. And why? Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that our choices aren't valid unless they're understood by someone else. And here's the insidious part. The more we explain, the more ingrained this habit becomes. Over time, it becomes less about the actual choice and more about controlling how it's perceived. We rehearse our decisions, not out of a genuine desire to communicate, but out of a need to be seen in a certain way. The problem is, when our self-worth is tied to external understanding, we lose our ability to trust our own judgment. We start living not from a place of internal clarity, but from a place of external expectation. So, when was the last time you stood in your decision without feeling the need to explain it, without rushing to justify it, without worrying about how it would be received? If you're like most people, it's probably been a while. We're conditioned to think that without explanation, our choices might not be accepted, or worse, they might be rejected altogether. But the truth is, no matter how much we explain, we can't control how others interpret us, and constantly trying to manage that interpretation only leads to frustration and internal conflict. Have you ever felt mentally exhausted after a conversation, even when there's no physical exertion involved? That drain comes from the constant mental gymnastics of adjusting, filtering, and recalibrating your words to make them more palatable to others. It's like being caught in a loop, where each decision, each interaction requires you to step outside yourself and think, how will this be received? How can I explain this so it doesn't cause discomfort or confusion? Over time, this effort becomes a mental burden, one that steals your peace and clarity, leaving you feeling depleted, even if the conversation itself wasn't physically demanding. This mental exhaustion is a direct result of constantly adjusting your words and actions to be acceptable to others. It's not just about being polite or clear, it's about seeking validation. We start to believe that the only way to stand firm in our choices is by explaining them thoroughly to others, hoping that our justification will be enough to gain their approval. But here's the catch. The more we rely on this external validation, the less we trust ourselves. When your choices are always made with the weight of needing to be understood by others, it chips away at your internal authority. You begin to second-guess yourself, wondering if what you've chosen is truly the best course of action, or if it's just the most acceptable one in the eyes of those around you. Every decision, whether big or small, starts to be influenced not by what feels right, but by what you think will be well received. You become less focused on living according to your own values and more concerned with fitting into someone else's expectations. The most unsettling part of this cycle is that it becomes so ingrained that you don't even realize you're doing it. The act of explaining becomes a reflex, a way of life. You no longer just make decisions. You preemptively adjust your decisions, trying to predict how they will be perceived and how you can justify them to avoid criticism or judgment. This constant need for approval isn't just draining, it's also isolating. The more you rely on others to validate your choices, the further you distance yourself from your true self. You stop trusting your own judgment, and you start living for others' approval, wondering if your feelings and actions are reasonable only when they are accepted by those around you. The problem with this, as the Stoics pointed out, is that it's a never-ending cycle. No matter how much you explain, no matter how much you adjust, you can't control how others will perceive you. There will always be someone who misunderstands, judges, or rejects you, no matter how carefully you craft your words. And when your peace depends on avoiding that, it's unstable at best and exhausting at worst. It's like trying to build your house on shifting sand. You never know when the next misunderstanding will come, and when it does, the whole structure of your self-worth and inner peace feels threatened. So what happens when this pattern continues over time? You begin to lose touch with your own voice. Your decisions stop being guided by your own values and beliefs, and instead, they're shaped by the need to please others or avoid discomfort. You become a version of yourself that is more concerned with being understood than being true to yourself. The real cost of this, though, is that it erodes your ability to trust your own judgment and instincts. You stop living freely and begin living for the validation of others, and in doing so, you lose the one thing that can truly provide peace: internal authority. The Stoics were clear about one fundamental truth: real peace, the kind that isn't easily shaken by external forces, comes from focusing on what is within our control. And at the core of this is our own actions and judgments, not how others perceive us, not how they interpret our words or choices, but how we understand and live according to our own principles. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, regularly reminded himself in his journals that the only thing truly within his control was his own response to events, not the events themselves. What others think of us, how they judge our actions, or how they perceive our words, they are all beyond our control. And when we place our peace in the hands of others, we open ourselves up to constant turmoil. The Stoics warned us against this very trap, where the need for external validation destabilizes our inner peace. Think about it. The moment we begin to seek approval or justification from others, we relinquish our internal authority. We become dependent on external validation to feel worthy or right. And that's where the instability creeps in. No matter how hard we try, we cannot guarantee that others will understand or accept us, no matter how carefully we explain ourselves. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes invaluable. It teaches us to shift our focus from what is uncontrollable, like others' perceptions, to what is truly ours to control, our own actions and responses. The Stoics taught that true freedom and tranquility come not from being understood by others, but from understanding and trusting ourselves. When we stop needing to explain ourselves, we begin to reclaim our inner strength. We start to act based on what is right for us, according to our values and judgment, rather than based on what we think will be accepted by others. This doesn't mean we become indifferent to the world around us, but it means that we no longer depend on the world's approval to validate our choices. Stoic stability isn't about being rigid or unemotional. It's about standing firm in your decisions, knowing they are guided by your reasoning and principles. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoic mindset invites us to live according to our own judgment without the constant pressure of needing to explain or justify our actions. It's about trusting that our decisions are valid because they align with our reasoning, not because they fit into someone else's expectations. The key to Stoic peace, then, is letting go of the need to explain and justify, and instead grounding ourselves in the certainty of our own inner authority. The more we align with this inner truth, the less we feel the urge to explain ourselves, and the more stable and peaceful our lives become. Imagine walking through life with the confidence that your decisions don't need validation from others to be valid. They simply are because they align with your own judgment. The real power of Stoic wisdom lies not in understanding the theory, but in putting it into practice. So how can you begin to apply this shift in your own life? It starts with one simple yet profound step: learning to stop explaining yourself. This doesn't mean becoming closed off or indifferent. It means allowing your decisions to stand on their own, without the need for constant defense or justification. Imagine for a moment making a choice and simply standing in it, fully confident that it was the right decision for you, without feeling the need to explain it to anyone. When you stop trying to convince others that your choices are valid, you begin to experience something new: internal silence. This silence isn't an absence of thought. It's a moment of clarity. It's the calm that comes when you no longer feel the need to negotiate your place in the world or your right to make choices. This shift doesn't happen overnight. At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost unnatural. We've spent so much of our lives explaining ourselves, justifying our decisions, and trying to gain approval that stepping away from this pattern can feel like a risk. You may even find yourself wanting to explain, to soften your position, to make others understand. But here's where the real growth happens: leaning into that discomfort. Instead of rushing to correct misunderstandings or explain your decisions, allow them to exist without needing to reshape them. When you stop explaining, you're not neglecting others' feelings or rejecting their perspectives. You're simply choosing not to base your peace on their approval. It's about being present in your choices, standing firm in your internal authority, and allowing others to accept or misunderstand you without feeling the urge to fix it. This might feel uneasy at first. The urge to explain yourself is ingrained in most of us, but that's exactly why it's worth practicing. Every time you choose not to explain, every time you let a misunderstanding stand without rushing to correct it, you build a new habit, a habit that doesn't rely on external approval for your peace. And over time, that discomfort will begin to fade. You'll notice something amazing happening. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. The more you stand firm in your choices without needing to explain them away, the more your inner confidence grows. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop second-guessing your choices and decisions. You no longer need to justify your no or yes. You trust that your decisions are valid because they come from a place of reason and alignment with your own values. The Stoics believed that peace comes when we stop seeking validation from others. But to achieve this, we must first practice allowing discomfort to exist. We must practice standing firm in our decisions without needing to explain or defend them. Over time, this practice becomes natural. It no longer feels uncomfortable, and it creates a deep sense of inner strength. Your decisions are no longer shaped by others' reactions. They are simply a reflection of your own judgment and inner clarity. As you begin to step away from the need to explain yourself, something deeper begins to take root within you, a quiet, transformative realization. You start to understand that the act of explaining was never truly about clarity or communication. It was about seeking approval, about trying to gain someone else's validation for your choices, your feelings, your existence. But when you stop explaining, you begin to tap into a new source of power: self-respect. This is the kind of respect that doesn't come from others seeing things your way. It's the respect that emerges from standing firm in your own values, from trusting your judgment and decisions without needing to reshape them to fit someone else's expectations. When you stop negotiating your choices with others, you reclaim your inner authority. Your decisions are no longer contingent on whether or not others approve of them. They stand on their own merit, grounded in your own understanding of what is right for you. As you continue to embrace this practice, you'll start to notice a shift not just within yourself, but in how others respond to you. This is where the true power of Stoic wisdom reveals itself. You begin to command a different kind of respect, one that arises from the authenticity of your actions and the steadiness of your presence. It's no longer about projecting a facade or playing a role to fit in. Instead, it's about being unapologetically yourself, aligned with your core values and beliefs, regardless of external judgment. This is a profound realization. When you stop trying to be accepted and start acting in alignment with your own values, you become more powerful, not by forcing others to accept your decisions, but by simply being authentic and unwavering in your choices. There's a quiet strength in that authenticity. It doesn't demand attention or approval, yet it commands respect. The people around you start to feel that difference. You no longer engage in the endless cycle of explanation and defense. Instead, your presence speaks for itself. And here's the beauty of this shift. As you become grounded in your decisions, as you stop second-guessing yourself and stop seeking validation, you become more at peace with who you are. You stop living for the approval of others, and instead, you live for yourself, your values, your principles, your truth. This is the essence of Stoic peace, the realization that your worth is not defined by others' understanding of you, but by your own relationship with yourself. As you stop seeking to be accepted, you start to feel a sense of freedom. The weight of constant justification, the mental exhaustion of always explaining, begins to lift. You no longer feel like you need to prove yourself to anyone. And in that space, something profound happens. You begin to live authentically. You make decisions from a place of clarity and internal strength, and that creates an inner peace that cannot be disturbed by outside forces. This is the quiet power of Stoicism. It's not about forcing your beliefs or actions onto others. It's about standing firm in your own truth, trusting your judgment, and being unwavering in the face of misunderstanding or criticism. When you stop explaining, when you stop justifying, you not only become more authentic, but you also become more aligned with your true self, unshakable and steady. As you begin to stop seeking approval from others, something remarkable starts to shift within you. The incessant need to explain yourself fades, and in its place, you find a profound sense of self-trust. When you no longer feel the need to justify every decision, every feeling, and every choice, you begin to experience life with a new level of clarity. The peace that once depended on the approval of others becomes an inner calm that is anchored in your own judgment. But let's be honest, this change doesn't come easily. It's not something that happens overnight. For years, you've been conditioned to explain, to justify, to seek validation, and breaking free from that pattern takes time and effort. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even unnatural. The urge to explain yourself will likely still creep in, and the discomfort of not justifying your decisions may feel unsettling. However, as you continue practicing this shift, you'll begin to notice a subtle transformation. With each decision you make without the need to explain it, you build trust in yourself. You reaffirm your internal authority and strengthen the clarity that comes from within. And as this trust grows, the noise of overthinking and second-guessing begins to quiet. You no longer feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying to predict how others will react. Instead, you start to live in alignment with your own values and beliefs, free from the need to adjust or justify them for anyone else. Over time, this shift leads to a quieter, more confident life. The weight of seeking approval and validating your existence through explanations lifts, and you become more grounded in your own self-awareness. Your decisions are no longer influenced by how others will perceive them. Instead, they are driven by what feels right to you, and that creates a solid foundation for peace and authenticity. This internal stability is something no one can take from you, no matter how they perceive your actions or choices. The final takeaway here is simple but profound. True self-empowerment comes from within. It's not about convincing others of your worth or needing to explain your every move. When you stop explaining, when you stop seeking external validation, you step into a place of quiet strength. You no longer need to prove yourself because you already know that your choices are valid simply because they align with your values. This self-empowerment doesn't depend on the world around you. It's rooted in your ability to trust yourself, to make decisions from a place of clarity, and to let go of the need to justify those decisions. And the more you practice this, the more you'll discover that the peace you've been seeking isn't something external. It's something you've had all along, quietly waiting within you. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop negotiating your worth with the world, and you start standing firm in your own truth, unshaken and at peace.